tried quitting smoking for donkey's years. And every time I walked into work, I put my cigarettes on the desk and I say, that's it, I'm done. And I give them away to people. And 12 hours later, I'd be begging for another one. Maybe not 12, maybe even 3 hours later, right? Why? Because those decisions to stop smoking back then came from parts. Ashamed, disgusted, desperate to be better. But then one day, my wife told me she was pregnant. And for the first time, self showed up in my internal family system. Self didn't shame me. Self didn't bargain. Self just said, we ain't bringing cigarette smoke into this kid's life. And that was it. I never smoked again. And here's a lesson. You don't need willpower. You just need permission from self. Frog. Ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. What did the frog say when it found itself in the library? Read it, read it, read it. Have you ever tried to stop drinking and ended up at a bar or just staring at your fridge wondering what the fuck is wrong with you? Well, let me save you a decade of shame. There is nothing wrong with you. You're just fighting the wrong battle. You think you're wrestling with alcohol, but what you're really fighting is resistance. And the more you fight it, the stronger that it gets. Welcome to the 1000 Days Sober podcast. My name is Lee Davy. I am not an alcoholic. I refuse to be anonymous. I am someone who lives a self-led life, alcohol-free as fuck, and I spend every waking moment of that life helping other people do the same, like right now in this sweltering UK heat. Hey folks, I have quit a lot of shit in my life. Booze, smoking, gambling, porn, sugar, and on and on and on. If it is supposedly an addiction, I've conquered it. But let me take you back to one that nearly broke me, or it felt like it was breaking me at the time. I was working on the railway back in the day in Barton Hill in Bristol. I was a train crew supervisor doing shifts. And I would show up for my 12-hour shift, stinking of stale smoke, lungs raw, mouth dry with guilt because I knew it was slowly killing me. And I would walk in like I was going to war with myself, right? And the first thing I would do, I would slam my Marlboro lights onto the desk and I would say, I'm done, right? And I would give it to the first person who walked in the room who was a smoker. And they would look at me as if to say, yeah, right, okay, we'll see you a little bit later when you're begging me for cigarettes. And they were right. A few hours into my shift, I would be begging for a cigarette. After just giving away my 20 cigarettes, I'd be begging people for cigarettes. Not because I loved it, I hated it. Not because I lacked knowledge and understanding, I knew it would kill me, but because I was resistance with the parts. So the parts of my, like the inner child, the wounded parts of my personality, they were the ones that were resisting resistance, okay? And there was a part of me that really wanted to quit, the one that was ashamed, the one that wanted to impress people. But it was still a part, right? It wasn't self. It was still rooted below the line in victim consciousness, in fear, in disgust, in punishment. And it wasn't until my ex-wife told me that she was pregnant with Jude, my beautiful boy, that something else showed up in the inner sanctum of Lee Davy. Not panic, not pressure, but self. And self said, Lee, here's the deal. We are not bringing cigarette smoke into this child's life. And it spoke to me with crystal clear clarity. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bargaining. I wasn't begging. There was no willpower. I didn't suddenly think that I was giving anything up. I realized there was nothing to give up, just freedom. And it enabled me to be just 100% completely done. And I never smoked another cigarette again. But here's the most important thing about my experience. I went from struggling to stopping smoking, like really struggling, to quitting and not craving a single cigarette to this day, 25 years later. And here's the thing. It wasn't because I suddenly became stronger or a new man. It was because self gave permission. And that is what you're really waiting for. Not willpower, permission. Because every day before that moment, resistance came up and my parts went to war. And every time they went to war, I lost. Because parts can't unhook parts. But self doesn't fight resistance. It just listens. And it brings calm to the chaos. And it offers a new direction, not another new command. Now we're about to take a short break, okay, while I liquefy my throat. But before we do, I want you to consider this. What if the voice inside of you that says don't change isn't your enemy, but a scared protector part just doing its job to keep you safe? So during the break, ask yourself, what is your resistance really afraid will happen if you stop drinking alcohol? Okay. Welcome back to the 1000 Days Sober podcast, where today we've been talking about resistance. And the reason we've been talking about resistance is this is a continuance of our STRIVE method workshop series, where I give you a peek under the hood at a workshop that you will find in the STRIVE method. And in the stuck phase of the STRIVE method, we talk about resistance, and we talk about it as not being your enemy, but as the doorway to freedom. And before the break, I asked you, what is your resistance afraid of? Because here is the truth. Resistance isn't the problem. It isn't. Fighting resistance is. Now, Dr. David Burns, the Gandalf of cognitive behavioral therapy, who's been a guest twice on the 1000 Days Sober podcast, he teaches that there are two forms of resistance. The first one is outcome resistance. This is the fear of what happens if you change. Right? The fear of what you will lose if you change, right? So if I stop drinking alcohol, oh my God, all the value that I have with alcohol, right? I'm not going to get it anymore. So I start to get afraid. I start to get worried. That is outcome resistance. The second form of resistance is process resistance, okay? The fear of what it takes to change. I want to quit drinking alcohol, but I'm not going to listen to a podcast. I'm not going to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm not going to join STRIVE in the STRIVE method because I don't want to do the work that it takes in order for me to become alcohol-free as fuck. So outcome resistance and process resistance. Strivers feel them both, right? They feel them both. Now, most people try to bulldoze through it, right? By saying to your parts, look, stop making excuses, just do the work and everything will be okay. But all this does is it strengthens your resistance. If you've ever found yourself in conflict with somebody else, not even conflict, like the build up to conflict. Have you ever tried to tell somebody what they're thinking or how they're feeling? Whenever you do that, right, boom, you get that resistance if they are below the line. This is the same thing with resistance within yourself, right? If you resist, it will persist. Why? Because the voices of resistance in your internal family system are parts of your personality who have been birthed to try to protect you from humiliation, from failure, from rejection, from pain. If you want to stop drinking, if you want to live a self-led life, alcohol-free as fuck, then you have to stop yelling instructions at your protectors, your parts, and you need to start listening to them, right? You have to side with the resistance. And I know this sounds counterintuitive. So when I have coaching clients, I'm not saying I always do this. Sometimes I veer between the two of them. But let's say I have a coaching client and they tell me that the reason they drink alcohol is it helps them relax, helps them feel more confident, takes the edge off, right? Sometimes with that client, I will help them to see themselves that that belief system is an illusion. Sometimes, right? But what I do to defeat resistance is I side with resistance, right? So if someone says to me, alcohol helps me relax, makes me confident, takes the edge off, I don't argue with them. I agree. I say, yeah, cool. Sounds like alcohol is really helping you. Tell me more. How else is alcohol really helping you? And they might say, wow, I really like it. Really tastes really beautiful. Like I can't eat steak without red wine. I can't eat fish without white wine. I can't go to social events without drinking it. I hate how I feel sad, angry, humiliated, embarrassed, ashamed. And when I drink, I don't feel those things anymore. It helps me sleep at night, gives me more confidence, helps me fuck for hours, right? And I'm like, wow, that's great. That's amazing. That's fantastic. That is huge. Let me ask you something. If alcohol provides you all those things, if alcohol is that incredible, why are you here right now having coaching with me? Boom. Suddenly, the system blinks. Self wakes up. The curtain that you see in The Wizard of Oz gets pulled back. It's almost like Lee and Strive with Toto the dog pulling back the curtain so you can see that there isn't a grand old wizard behind that curtain. There's just an old man, right? That's Strive. That's what we do. We don't shame your resistance. We speak to it. So in that moment, when we side with the resistance, when we agree that alcohol is so amazing, it opens the window for self to go, hang on a minute, hang on. So a good example, when I was drinking alcohol, I could give you all the reasons why alcohol should remain in my life. And when someone like David Burns would agree with that, then he would say to me, well, what are you here for then? Actually, the reason I'm here is, despite all the value that alcohol provides me, my wife is going to leave me if I don't stop drinking. That is powerful, right? Because now all of a sudden, there's something greater than that. Now your system and all your parts are like, holy shit, if she leaves us, how am I going to protect this guy? How are we going to keep him safe, right? It really opens up a whole new chapter that we can dive into and unweave and tell a different story, right? So we really help you here at the Strive Method, help you see the liquid lie, this cultural bullshit story that alcohol is nice, normal, necessary, natural, and noble. We help you see how it has hijacked your nervous system. And then by siding with resistance and understanding how resistance works, we help you take your power back. Okay? Okay, on to today's daily vow. Today, I will not drink alcohol. I will no longer fight my resistance. I will learn from it. I understand that resistance isn't weakness, it's protection. And today, I choose to lead those scared, tired parts with love, not war. I give myself permission to change, not because I have to, but because this beautiful soul deserves to. As you go about your day to day, please reflect on these questions. Where in your life do you feel the most resistance? And which type is it? Is it alcohol resistance or is it process resistance? And inherent in that, what is your system trying to protect you from? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have time for today. If this episode hit home, don't resist what I'm going to say next, which is please rate and review it on your local podcast player. Please overcome that resistance and send it to someone else who's stuck. You may make a big difference in someone's life today. Subscribe so you don't miss a single show. And if you want to learn more about how resistance shows up in your life, about outcome resistance, process resistance, internal family systems, how we can help you live a self-led life, alcohol-free as fuck, you need to be taking the Strive Method workshop, okay? Get over to thestrivemethod.com to find out more, or email me directly at thestrivemethod@gmail.com and I'll tell you, I'll answer any questions you could have, right? Okay, you ready to take today's Sovereign Vow? One hand on the heart, one hand on the belly, and a big deep breath with me, okay? Ready? Repeat after me. I am a striver who is alcohol-free as fuck. And I will not drink today because that is not what I do and that is not who I am. Until tomorrow, much love and strive on, everybody.